Joshua Gilbert is our next guest tonight. So he's a farmer, actually. You won't be able to tell by looking at his awesome haircut and his cool suit. But he's a farmer and comes from a long line of farmers who work with stud beef. He's got a really great story, but now he works with one of the largest employees of Indigenous accountants. And he won the prestigious award for the Australian Geographic Young Conservative Conservationist of the Year. Sorry, sorry, I'm making words up now. I'm going to let Joshua introduce you to you, and he'll tell you a little bit more of his story.
Just really lucky I'm wearing boots tonight, so hopefully that might give things away. Cheers. I'd just like to start by acknowledging country as well, and recognise Richard, who was here before, and thank him for his welcome, and recognise all of you and thank you for being here today. I particularly want to recognise the Indigenous youth, and I want to focus on that throughout my speech tonight because I think it's such a huge population and often overlooked. I'm a Worimi man from the mid-north coast of New South Wales. My ancestry's been traced back to the first recorded birth in a cave in our area. And unfortunately my Aboriginal history was hidden from me a lot when I was a kid. And my parents decided that, and my grandparents really decided that at an early age that they would kind of cover up their Indigenous heritage, and being fair-skinned, unfortunately, that was a bit easier than some of us would like. So my great-great-grandfather actually committed suicide to help make sure that his kids weren't stolen, and hence the secret remained in my family up until recently. But I'm really lucky today that I was put in touch with one of my aunties who actually shared a lot of the stories and a lot of our history, and means that we can recognise our country and our land today. And I'm actually even happier that my family continue farming that land over 40,000 years into the future, and I get back to the farm most weekends. So I actually started out being completely oblivious not only to my Indigenous background but also to my agricultural background. My grandparents all owned farms up where I'm from, and I actually really disliked the fact of waking up at 4 o'clock and helping my grandfather milk cows. And I really disliked having to go out and round up cattle through thick scrub. But it wasn't until, I guess, my 20s that I actually fell in love with agriculture again. And chasing some sheep on someone else's farm one weekend just really clicked with me. And that was really the moment that I came back. I quit university, broke up with my girlfriend, bought a cow called Investment. She was an investment. I tripled my money, so that was my proof that I was a good farmer to my dad. And that's how I kicked off this venture, and now I have been doing a lot of environmental work because I think it's really important as a young Aboriginal person that we leave, and for all people, that we leave the world in a better place than where we find it today. And I think climate change and land clearing, particularly in Australia, is something that we really need to start looking at and taking some really serious policy changes on as well. When I was about 2 years ago, so when I was 23, I was working in a job that I absolutely hated as an accountant, and became really depressed and started looking at a way out of my current situation. I actually found entrepreneurship, and as a young Aboriginal person trying to show that entrepreneurship was a good idea to my parents was kind of difficult, and I think most of the time they just thought I was caught up in fast cars, lots of money, and everything else that comes along with it. I was actually really lucky. I found my job on Twitter, which is pretty amazing, and some of my friends reached out a week when they started after and said, "Oh, hey Josh, we've got a job." And my first interview actually was the first time I ever met them in real life, so it's pretty impressive. So the company I work for now is PwC's Indigenous Consulting. We're actually a separate legal body to PwC, which is a big global accounting practice. and we're actually owned by 2 Aboriginal co-owners, and operated majority 60% by Indigenous staff in 8 locations across Australia. The company's been going for about 3.5 years now, and we've done over 250 projects in over 400 regional and remote locations across Australia. And the work we kind of do is either very Indigenous specific, where we're helping to reform the child protection system in Queensland, for instance, to using Indigenous methods and Indigenous approaches to modern issues. So we've reformed the trademark system, if that interests anyone, or we've provided small business cash flow management help and assistance to over 3 million small businesses across Australia. But what I'm really passionate about is Indigenous youth. Over half the Indigenous population is made up of young Indigenous people who are under the age of 30. And for many states around Australia, the median age of Aboriginal people is 22. So we're pretty young. And I think the real problem that a lot of young Aboriginal people face, whether it's here in Canberra or in remote places, is the lack of a role model who can really help support and nurture that person. Often success means that person has to move 3 or 4 hours away to continue their education or to continue studying at university. So we kind of displace them from the land that they grew up on and where they call home. And for those people who actually take that risk and who take the chance on that, often they're removed from their support base. They're in a completely new city, often sometimes with completely new languages. And I think that just having that exposure is really difficult. So some of the things that our company's been working on, and me personally, is looking at Indigenous business and Indigenous entrepreneurship as a way of kind of staying connected to country while still providing services and getting a good pay packet. And really what we're aiming for is to create a new normal around entrepreneurship. What it looks like, and kind of supporting that person to be normal, I guess, in their community, and also have the access that any other entrepreneur has across Australia, and if not the world. So one of the big issues that we have is that there's no actual black entrepreneurial rock star. We're actually missing a shining light who can provide really good support and mentoring and advice to young Indigenous entrepreneurs. And we're also missing a community around them to try and build them up and give them the opportunity to have a decent crack. So some of the things I've been working on is to try and help that, and hopefully in a few months we'll be able to provide some really great opportunities for these people. But I think their voices aren't being heard either. So if you have a look at the Advisory Council for the Prime Minister, there's not one young Aboriginal person on there. The same in a lot of our states, and a lot of politicians and policymakers actually refuse to speak to Aboriginal people or discard their voices because of their age. So I think trying to keep pushing, and there's a whole heap of Indigenous activists who are trying to get that through and have a really great voice, and that needs to be heard given the age population. So that's kind of some of the work I'm at. Feel free to hammer me in question time, because I really love those. And I look forward to meeting a lot of you later on tonight. Thanks.
Joshua Gilbert. Yes, we will be having a question and answer a little later. My first question will be, what happened to the cow that you bought? But also, that sounds fascinating, how you're reforming the trademark system. The tone of your voice made me think that you didn't think anyone else thought it was interesting, but I'm sure it's very interesting to a lot of